Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Happy Friday, everybody. The weekend is upon us, so I hope you guys have got some nice things planned ahead of you. If you don't, that's totally fine. Probably some of you are going to spend the majority of it staring at charts like myself. This is going to be a really important video for you crypto holders out there. Now, I know I probably say that on every single video, but this one in particular is important. Today, this is going to be our cryptocurrency daily market update. And the reason we started giving these cryptocurrency market updates is because it's becoming increasingly apparent that the financial world around us, what takes place in the stock market, the policies of the Federal Reserve, global financial events, etc., what took place in March 2020 when everything crashed, impact our space, impact the cryptocurrency market. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have a lot of the same actors now in the traditional financial space within our space, and they're the ones that really drive the price, certainly via the margin. And margin is what sets price. So price is determined by the margin. Margins move markets. What do I mean by that? Well, it's new money coming into a market that will drive the price up or down. So if there's more money exiting the market at that certain time period, the market will go down, and vice versa. If there's new money coming in and it overwhelms sort of sell pressure, the market goes up. So hodlers don't necessarily dictate the price because they've already dictated the price at a set period. They bought at a certain period of time. Perhaps at that time there was more people buying than there was selling. And the price has already seen appreciation from that. So the people holding don't necessarily determine the price. What they do is take liquidity off the table for the price to be sold into. So if you continue to sell, eventually, theoretically, although order books work in a kind of weird and wonderful way, you will run out or have less depth to sell into, which will mean there's only a certain degree markets can sell off by. But this is all getting way over probably some people's heads. So really what I want to do in this video is really talk about what's going on in a kind of macroeconomic sense, why we're seeing what we're seeing with Bitcoin, why potentially there could be a little bit of a choppy period following what the Federal Reserve are or are not going to do. And really, you guys know how bullish I am on crypto. I ultimately think that blockchain technology is going to change the world in a similar way to the internet. And my macro view is that a $1.8 trillion market cap, we've got a long way to go. There's going to be trillions added to that. We're going to get to the tens and above $1 trillion in terms of market caps. And a lot of these cryptos are going to appreciate significantly. But there's a journey we have to take to get there. And that is now impacted by the macroeconomic landscape. And the reason being is because the price of Bitcoin is moved. How price is set is by volume to the up or downside during that time period, on that day essentially. It's set by the margin. So if right now you've got a lot of big people, institutions that decided back over here in March 2020, okay, the dollar's going to get massively inflated. Let's get into a risky asset because it's a risk-on period, and we know that risky assets will actually perform at a higher beta in times of proliferation. They are now, with what's taking place with the Federal Reserve, and they are some of the reasons you've seen Bitcoin do so well, as long with retail's involvement and FOMO largely, they are now the same people that are potentially dumping and exiting positions at this current time period, as there's an uncertainty across markets globally. The Federal Reserve is scaring markets with a triple threat of policy tightening. So they're talking about interest rate hikes, they're talking about taking liquidity off the table, stopping bond purchasing, and actually reducing their balance sheet, so potentially selling what's on their balance sheet. This is all typically negative for your equities markets. And of course, crypto being tethered to that, it's evolved from a space. And what I'm going to do, guys, so there's going to be a link in the description to my Discord. I'm going to do on Sunday, potentially, depending on how hungover I am from Saturday night, although I will definitely be doing it. I'm going to be giving you a kind of more of a in-depth macro view on things and how I think this moves forwards and why there is the potential for some choppy action, but still reconfirm my bullish bias that this is a space that's really early in its kind of adoption curve and has a long way to go. We're going to have to kind of sit through whatever storm is kicked up by the Federal Reserve tackling inflation, which is what has allowed Bitcoin to have such an amazing run in the meantime. And we're seeing things like the NASDAQ. I mean, that's a pretty severe sell-off for the NASDAQ. You know, severe in regards to, this is March 2020 when the entire market crashed. This is the most severe pullback it's had over a short time period since. This, of course, is Netflix. This had a lot to do with their subscriptions coming under value. This is due to things like Disney Plus and other platforms actually capturing a greater market share. And of course, this is the S&P. So it's no surprise that our market, that has a lot of the same institutions involved in it, that invest in these other equities, are now, you know, we're feeling the pressure. And this is all from the Federal Reserve and the uncertainty surrounding it. People are going to take risk off the table in order to mitigate their damage. And the reason that they have to do that, somebody like myself, let me very quickly reconfirm my cryptocurrency bias. I still hold all the crypto I've ever bought. That's not true. There's some small altcoins that I've flipped, but in terms of my large altcoins, my large caps, they've all been held for a long time. Some of them have been held for nearly 5 years now, and I'm going to hold them well into the future because I believe in this space. But I think there's going to be a journey that involves choppy waters, like any kind of a passage does, to get there. And I think this is going to be potentially a period of choppy waters because we don't exactly know what the repercussions of the Federal Reserve are going to do. And they are going to have to up interest rates. How many of you guys know that 40% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in savings? This is, again, another reason we're such big ambassadors of crypto, because what those 40% of Americans now have had happen is their wages have gone significantly less, or in terms of buying power, because commodities and everything has gone up. They're significantly worse off, and their wages haven't increased in accordance. Whereas the top half of Americans, certainly the top 10%, they've made a lot of money off this. They don't care if their wage hasn't gone up because their house has, their commodities, their stocks, you name it, their crypto has done very well. So the Fed have to, and there's politics involved in this because you've got the midterm election, you've got the midterms coming up. They have to appease the people in a popularity contest. This is why fiat systems are BS, because they are controlled by a bunch of corrupt individuals that all have allegiances elsewhere other than to the people, even though they may say that they are, you know, here for the people, like the SEC, for example, who in some ways potentially are here to protect people, but in other ways, of course, protect their own individuals. So there's a lot going on here. So they kind of have to up interest rates. They have to do something. What strain does that then put on the economy? Well, you're already starting to see it in some of these stocks. People are taking risk off the table as they're anticipating a liquidity crunch. That means low volume. And then if you have institutions that have to essentially sell, that's going to be an overwhelming, price is determined by the margin, of sell pressure against buy pressure, causing the price to go down. And if it's a big enough institution and they become forced sellers due to credit lines, etc., we don't often go into depth on this channel about some of the things I'm talking about, as a lot of this is going to confuse you. But the basic concept that I'm talking about here is if the Federal Reserve up interest rate, money becomes more expensive and people become less willing to part with it. Also couple that with a potential economic downturn, which I'm not saying is definitely going to happen because the Fed, remember, this is all hearsay for now, but this is a potential forecast. You've got to bear all that in mind. And then as a cryptocurrency holder, as a cryptocurrency investor, you've got to allocate that to your space. Now, my opinion is Bitcoin is going to continue to go higher, but I think right now we're going to see a little bit of chop. We potentially could see more downside. How does this affect your altcoins? Well, they sell off in a higher beta, potentially. Something like Cardano, there may be fundamental reasons for it to go higher, but it will still have that tide bringing it up and down that is Bitcoin. You can see that with the entire market. A perfect example, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, of the fact that margin is what determines a market. You know, the price is set via margin, what's traded back and forth on a day, is with the Sunday swap release, we saw a huge buy pressure. That was new money, new margin coming into the market and overwhelming the sell pressure. Here, we've seen an overwhelming of sell pressure. new money coming in and selling to the downside. So hodlers largely don't really affect the price. What they do is take liquidity off the table. So this is something I'm personally going to ride out. You guys know I am all in crypto. And that's not just the name of the channel. That is my position. I do have various income streams. You guys know I own a business. I also have a number of other income streams that essentially, typically, the majority of that will go into crypto. What I may do, and we're going to update you, and I'll certainly update people on my Discord. I'm going to do a chat with all the members. Some of the members have been with me from the start. Lots of them are delegated to the Cardano stake pool that I have, etc., etc. Is potentially put a little bit of that cash to one side and have it as cash. As painful as it is to do, not saying that there's 100% a guarantee that markets continue to fall, but if that is the case, given the headwind that we face with the Federal Reserve, and remember guys, this is all a scenario. None of this is factually played out. One of the factual things that we do have at task is the fact that the Federal Reserve needs to do something about inflation for their own popularity other than nothing else, and for their own saving grace. And that's going to affect markets. And we're seeing that. You know, look at your NASDAQ, look at your Netflix, look at your FTSE. Look at all these, you know, they're all tumbling right now. I don't think the FTSE is actually tumbling, but remember the FTSE didn't actually make it to its prior 2020 March crash. So there's a lot going on. It's been a very stressful time period for me over the past couple of months as I've been looking at markets, positioning myself, and trying to work out what to do and what way they're going. One thing that I'm pretty certain of is there's going to be a time period of uncertainty now. Bitcoin has moved away. Remember, this is the macro Bitcoin chart from its inception, or certainly when it was on a chart to the top. The green lines are the halvenings, which typically have caused the 4-year cycle theory. And we'd played out really up until the end of 2021, which we were expecting to be a parabolic runoff. And we had followed it very closely. But what we didn't take into account, and certainly I knew about but should have paid a lot more attention to, is the fact that there was bigger players involved and that we were largely now tethered to the economic landscape rather than just the halvings and our own fundamentals and, you know, this kind of group that we're in. So that does not mean I'm bearish on a macro term frame for crypto. I'm anything but. You guys know I'm the biggest bull going. You know, I am all in crypto for a reason. I think crypto has a long, prosperous future, but there's a journey to get there. And that journey, no journey is straightforward. You know, if you think about, you know, I don't know how many of you guys are into sailing, or you know, even taking a trip on an airplane, sometimes there's a little bit of turbulence to get to your destination. That's what we're going to experience, and that's largely off the back end. So do we see bloodletting? Do we see a sharp stab down and then continuation, potentially? Or do we just, you know, see a period of not really doing anything and then we continue? One thing I'm certain of, or certainly very confident of, you can't be 100% certain of anything, is that Bitcoin does go on to make new all-time highs eventually. But there's going to be a period of downdraft. There's going to be a period of headwind from the Federal Reserve doing what they do, meddling in markets. And here's the real cherry on the cake. How many of you guys know that the members of the Federal Reserve, or people close to them within Congress, traded perfectly, or if they didn't trade it themselves, their spouses traded it, everything that took place from March 2020 onwards? So they made calls that went in the right direction. They made calls before the Federal Reserve even came out and announced policy and affected markets. That is 100% insider trading, and 100% if I did that, if somebody else did that, you would go to jail for a very long time. So this is a corrupt, messed up game that we're playing, but we have no other choice but to be a partaker in it. One thing that I'm hopefully doing on this channel is helping you understand the game that you're playing. And this is a huge element of what's taking place right now. The Federal Reserve, they're tightening, and how this has negative repercussions on markets. Crypto isn't going anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. The reasons for Bitcoin, and we've shown you this in every single cryptocurrency market update that we've done, continue to become more and more apparent and more relevant. That trend continues, but for now, we are going to see what takes place. And this is, in my opinion, what you're seeing here potentially is some institutions exit the market as they have no other choice. Even though they may believe that Bitcoin's going to 250K. I mean, Kathy Wood, for example, her fund sold off significantly. But a lot of these other big institutions, they can't be a hodler like myself. They can't be a hodler like you guys because they have credit limits, they have bosses to appease. And if a boss comes over and takes a look at their position and goes, hang on, you're 30% down for the year, you got to go. They're not going to take that risk, whereas somebody like myself can. And for me, hodling's been a strategy that is tried and tested. And if we look at the long-term chart for Bitcoin, it's up and to the right. Reason being is what you're seeing here is an adoption. This is going to continue. There's going to be exponential adoption at some point. Remember, crypto is still very early in that stage, but this is a journey that's going to see some turbulence on the back end of it. So this really, it's not a warning. It's more of me giving you my sort of stance on things. I'm still exceptionally bullish on the crypto space. I just think there's going to be turbulence in us getting to the destination that we desire to board. So take that for what it is. There's going to be some amazing opportunities here, in my opinion. If the cryptocurrency market continues to sell off, there's going to be some brilliant opportunities to pick some of these coins up at a far, far cheaper price. And that's something I'm personally very excited about. Some of these coins are going to do better than others. Some of the ones that have got big horizons and so on and so forth. So I'm going to love and leave you on that note. This was a very important video. This is why we banged on about the Federal Reserve continuously. This doesn't mean that I'm bearish. I'm still bullish on the crypto space. Again, I just think there's turbulence associated with us getting to where we've got to go to. If markets like this are selling off, there's a lot of leverage in our market. I have no idea the level of stupidity of traders trading long with leverage or even short with leverage in these markets. Who are these traders? Because if they work for me, they'd have got fired. It doesn't take a genius. Bit of a rant here. This was where you should have been leveraged. This, given every kind of surrounding factor, is like taking a ship through a coral reef. It's dangerous. I have no idea. And the thing is with these people, they don't learn. They don't learn a thing from getting liquidated. So I don't know why they're continuing to put longs on in such an uncertain market. I think it's because human beings inherently cannot help themselves. Greed is, it's a huge factor in why people lose money. So that's really what I've got for you in the video, guys. Still very bullish on crypto. We're just going to experience a bit of turbulence, in my opinion, over the coming days. And that doesn't mean that we don't, see a bit of a relief and come back up again. Remember, Bitcoin's already sold off quite a bit, so we could see a relief rally and maybe a period of consolidation. But one thing that I'm very confident on is we are going to make new all-time highs. Eventually, we're just going to have some choppy action, given the downwind from the Federal Reserve, to get there. All I have for you in the video, guys. I will see you later on with a Sunday swap trial video. And yeah, if you've enjoyed the content, like us, I'd appreciate it. So is a comment, Discord link in the description, and I'll catch you all in the next YouTube video, guys.